Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, there's the microphone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are back, Draft Central here on the CLNS Media Network. Mike Kadlick, Tayler Kyles, bringing you from 11 a.m. right now, all the way through the Patriots pick coming up at 1:06. That is pick 106. Round 4 starts at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and the Patriots have one pick in the 4th round. Then they have 3 5th-round picks coming up. We'll do another stream after that. And then they have 2 7s. We'll probably do a full day 3 wrap after those come through. We got 3 guests lined up for you heading into round 4. So let's just kick it off right now. We'll bring them in here right away. It is Daniel Rotman. You know him as Scout D NFL on Twitter. First and foremost, good morning. Thank you for joining us. How has your draft season been so far through 2025?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here. Exciting times for Patriots fans. Like, this is the first time that I've really been pumped about a draft. So much so I really didn't sleep last night, creating some Kyle Williams cut-ups. So I think just generally so much to be excited about as a Patriots fan now.
Let's talk about that right away then. We'll start with Kyle Williams. We'll start with the entire day 2 haul. I think everybody knows Will Campbell was the obvious pick on day 1. We kind of knew that was going to happen. We've parsed through that enough. We'll leave that aside. But Patriots draft Travion Henderson, Kyle Williams, and Jared Wilson on Friday. I'm getting my days all mixed up. That was, in fact, Friday. What did you make of it? What do you like from those 3 guys? Anything you dislike? And was there anything, I guess, you would have liked to see them do instead of those 3 guys?
Definitely. So, yeah, I think they let the board fall really well to them. When I was kind of watching that 38th overall pick in a vacuum, I wasn't necessarily sold. I love Travion Henderson, the player. I think he's a great back, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. But I was skeptical kind of leaving that pass catcher on the board or, not going with a guy like Ezeraku or someone who maybe was a little bit more of a position of need there. But I think the way you look at this draft in its entirety, you get your guy at 69, then you trade back and you still get Jared Wilson. I think they were really patient. They let the board fall to them. They had a really good idea of where guys were going to go. And I was kind of worried that group of pass catchers, the names that all these Patriots fans have floated around, whether being Kyle Williams, Trey Harris, Betch, Knoll, that kind of range of guys we thought could maybe be there at 69, was great to have 1 and 2 of them on the board. So really happy with that.
How did you feel about Jaden Higgins? Because we heard from Elliott that there were talks about a certain player wound up getting taken. I feel like that probably was Higgins because Chad Graff of The Athletic reported that he was one of their guys. I didn't love that because while I do like the player, I just didn't think he was a great fit. How did you feel about him, though? Because I feel like I was in the minority there. Would you have liked to see them maybe get aggressive if they had to for Jaden Higgins, or are you happy with how it turned out, obviously, now that we have the full context?
For sure. Yeah. So like you said, I think that was definitely a target that we kind of all envisioned, just looking back at Elliott Wolf's history and kind of seeing what he likes out of the receiver position. So that's kind of where I thought they would probably go in that direction. Looking back on it now, you're able to get a guy in Kyle Williams who maybe like a couple spots down my big board behind Higgins much later in the draft. So I love that. I think they kind of looked at it in the sense that we have a lot of guys here at receiver that we do love in this range, and we're not going to force it. We would rather kind of get the board our way. But yeah, I love the Kyle Williams fit, probably even a little bit more than Jaden Higgins, as you said. I think the things that the Patriots have really been lacking over the past couple of years is, number 1, the speed, number 2, the separation, kind of just that guy who can actually scare defenses. And that matchup nightmare where you actually have defensive coordinators staying up at night thinking about what do we do with this guy. That's, I think, the thing that it really boils down to for Patriots fans that we really have not had in a while. And when you watch Kyle Williams, like, he's arguably the best in that sense. Like, you could make an argument that pure speed on tape, it's Kyle Williams. Just the twitch, the jitterbug, the route running, the yards after catch, the ability to create separation with ease downfield. Like, that is Kyle Williams. So I think it's a great fit. I think what he's going to be able to do under the tutelage of a guy like Stephon Diggs, being coached by Josh McDaniels, I think it's a great fit. I think Patriots fans have a lot to be excited about there.
Also, really quick, a fun little thing. So Kyle Williams was a former quarterback. You always love that from your wide receivers, but now he's actually got a receivers coach who has a background coaching quarterbacks. And that was one thing I was curious, like, how exactly is that going to go? Obviously, knowing the quarterback's perspective can help with receivers, but it's cool that now you can pair your young guy with someone who literally has experience in a similar mold. I think that's kind of fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think also, like, with Josh McDaniel's system, like, you want guys who understand everything. Like, you want guys who understand the whole system and, know all the chess pieces on the field. And it seems like with his quarterback background, Kyle Williams is going to be that guy. So I'm really excited about that.
It's a cliche Patriots thing when you think about it, but it's the truth with that, where you're Julian Edelman's, your Jacoby Myers, like when you can understand exactly what your quarterback is looking for, finding space and coverage and, just getting off the ball and things of that nature, like that can really help. That's why you see a guy, I go back to Edelman, but that's why his rapport with Brady was so successful, I think, because of the way they clicked and understanding kind of, what it entails to be a quarterback and why you want to find guys and how you want to find guys. But on the offensive weapon, I guess, conversation here, when we were live yesterday at Pick 38, I wasn't thrilled with Travion Henderson, and that is an inherent bias on me taking running backs too early. We've talked about it. But again, as the board sort of fell, like you mentioned, Dan, like the way they filled the rest of their holes where Kyle Williams goes off the board at 69. And then not only did they stick at 70, if they stuck at 77 and took Jared Wilson, I probably would have been okay with it. But they trade back nearly 20 spots. They pick up a 4th-round pick next year. And then also they pick up the extra 5th for later on today. So I ended up liking the way everything filled out. And I've sort of come to the fact that I'm okay with a running back at 38 now. But let's talk more about Travion Henderson specifically, what you like about him. He is obviously an offensive weapon. He brings it in the passing game. He's the best pass blocking running back, not only in this class, but I think we've seen in like a very long time. That seems like the consensus across the NFL draft realm. So talk to us a little bit about Henderson, what you like from him and what he can bring to this offense.
And where he fits too.
Yeah, for sure. I think throughout the process, we were kind of sold on this like 3rd down pass catching specialist. And what I love about Henderson is he's going to give you that, like he's going to give you that explosiveness, that 4.4 speed, that versatility to kind of use him everywhere and scheme him up and get him in the screen game and all that. But if you're going to take a running back at 38, he better be able to do everything. And Travion Henderson can. Like, he's not just that guy with the explosiveness and versatility and, jitterbug athleticism. He's also the guy who, like you said, is going to go do the dirty work. And he's a great pass protector. He can win in the trenches. So this is a guy who you truly can keep on the field on every single down. And it's worth noting, like, you still have a guy there in Ramondre Stevenson that can kind of help ease him in, and Antonio Gibson. Like, those are good, solid backs that can really help him get there and take the load off of him a little bit. So I'm just really excited about kind of, how well-rounded his skill set is. And, you're never going to really have limitations with a guy like Travion Henderson.
I'm curious, do you think that he is going to be a guy that like threatens Antonio Gibson for snaps? Do you think he's going to be their 3rd down back? Like you said, he can do everything and they have a lot of flexibility there. But like, I'm thinking it's Josh McDaniels, so the sky's limitless. Like Antonio Gibson and Travion Henderson on the field at the same time gives you true like playbook wide open versatility. So how do you think that he could mesh with those guys schematically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think part of like the offseason and Josh McDaniels was talking about like how he's expanded his playbook and getting a little bit more creative. And so obviously you expect Travion Henderson to kind of be the top dog there. But at the same time, going back to what I was saying, like these are still really solid NFL backs that you have on the roster. And especially when you have a guy who's so interchangeable in versatility, like he can play that more versatile role while Ramondre Stevenson's maybe the decoy, in the run game. And then vice versa. You can have Travion Henderson as the decoy in the run game and Antonio Gibson, as the pass catcher. So these guys are all very interchangeable and you kind of have 3 backs that really mesh well together and complement each other's skill sets. So I'm super excited about that. And, I feel like going back to, the Mac Jones era with Josh McDaniels, a big part of our success when we had like the 6th or 7th best offense in the league, it was the screen game. And I think Travion Henderson, that's part of his game where he really succeeds in just, obviously the explosiveness and speed, but also the timing, the patience, the vision. And, I think also Patriots fans are going to be really happy with all the fumbling issues that we've had over the last couple of years. Like this is a guy who doesn't really fumble. This is a guy who has been there for a long, long time. He's done it at a very high level. He's a professional. And I think that was really a theme with this draft too, is we've got really good people in this building. And it seems like the culture is also shaping up really well.
So he's Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
boy,
but he does. He gives you that kind of nice, like Rex Burkhead, Dion White, like versatility. But he's also your classic back who's gonna get it done in the trenches and continue kind of like the Mike Vrabel wanting to pound the rock philosophy.
Speaking of the trenches, I'm curious how you see the outlook of the offensive line now, because obviously Will Campbell slates in at left tackle. It's highly unlikely he plays anywhere else as a rookie. But Jared Wilson, a guy that I thought was a center-only prospect, one of the only reasons I had never really mocked him to the Patriots, because I think they wanted somebody with versatility. Turns out he started at guard when he actually went to Georgia, and he was talking about, which I never really clicked. He went up against all these maulers we talk about from Georgia, like everybody on the Eagles basically, and all these powerhouses. He was going up against them in practice all the time, which allowed him to be second team All SEC his first year as a starter. But knowing that he's got that versatility, how do you see the offensive line shaping up? Because Leighton Robinson finished the season on a high note last year. Cole Strange, obviously, we'd love to see a bounce back from him. So do you think Garrett Bradbury is a starter day one? Do you think maybe Jared Wilson fits in more at guard? What do you think shakes out there?
For sure. Well, yeah, first of all, it's super interesting. Love that pick. I think he's going to be a long-time starter for us. I'm super excited about that. But yeah, like you said, well, I think part of it is when you're playing the center position, it's not necessarily just about, the physical element of who you are as a player, but also the mental element of your rapport with the quarterback and understanding all the protections and things like that. So I think that will probably be the biggest challenge for Jared Wilson in, getting that starting job over a guy like Garrett Bradbury, who's been there before. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if Bradbury ends up starting week one just because of that. So we'll see on that end. But like you said, a guy like Jared Wilson who has played guard and, you have that athleticism and size where you have so much raw potential under the right coaching staff to kind of maneuver where you want. So I could definitely see a scenario where he comes in mid-season at center or he starts at guard and transitions over. But the thing with the offensive line is you're always going to have injuries. You're always going to have guys who aren't there in week 4, 8, 12 at the end of the season. So just having these guys who are not only good starters in their own respective position, but could potentially slide in there. So I would probably say that they'll battle it out for week 1. It could go 50-50 depending on just like their comfort level with, how well Wilson knows the playbooks and how experienced he is now with all that other mental stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of options there. I would say the most likely is probably Bradbury starting, and then Campbell obviously left tackle, Moses right tackle, Onwenu right guard. And then I think, probably you're filling in Cole Strange right there. But, if Wilson has also demonstrated a lot at guard, that'll be a potential battle if Bradbury ends up winning the center job.
Real quick, Mike, last thing for me, I promise. But to your point about Jared Wilson with the being able to pick up the different looks and things he's going to see in the NFL, one thing Elliot Wolf mentioned yesterday was the pedigree of these guys and the fact that it's going to give them a bit of a leg up when they get to the league. And when you talk about pressure packages, you're going up against the Alabamas of the world, and Nick Saban obviously is not there anymore, but still the bones of his defense. And then Georgia, there's things that Georgia's doing schematically that's trickling up to the NFL with their mint fronts and things like that. So that's a little bit exciting. If you do, see Jared Wilson either forced to or earning that top center spot, you at least know, okay, this isn't a guy who hasn't seen a bunch of, exotic fronts. It wasn't vanilla in the SEC. So that's another exciting element of that he really can slide in and probably perform at a decently high
That's level. A great point too. And I think, with these guys who are a little bit more raw in their tools and you're kind of hoping that you can get them under the right coaching and they'll be something special. I think the thing that you look for is what's their mentality? How do they carry themselves? How do they walk in the building? And, just in the brief kind of period that I've been able to see him interview and him speak in some behind the scenes videos here, he's someone who he seems very passionate about football, very energetic, very mature, very professional. So I think when you kind of get that mental skill set with also the size, the tools, the raw upside, you're looking at a really good potential starter in the league.
And Taylor, we talked about the offensive line room a little bit last night with John. Immediately, really, when they drafted Jared Wilson, and it's offensive line, wide receiver, both positions of need, but now they're both really full where there's going to be some attrition, and you wonder, but you also mentioned the injuries that could happen across the offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see how the depth chart shakes out, who is sort of the odd man out, your City Sows, your Jake Andrews, who's coming off the injury, where do those guys end up? Same with the wide receiver room too. But at the end of the day, they really, plug some holes there and are continuing into day 3. Filling out offense, you mentioned, Daniel, before the show that they've made offensive draft picks in 11 out of their last 12 selections. They're coming up today with 6 picks, 1 in the 4th, 3 in the 5th, and 2 in the 7th. So before we get you out of here, what are you looking for the Patriots to do on day 3? How do you think this thing can shake out as we start this thing up in about another hour?
For sure. And I think quickly it kind of goes back to the point of like maybe why they went with a guy like Henderson at 38 over a guy like Ezeraku. This class is loaded on defense, specifically at that D-line edge, those corner positions. Like there's a lot of talent to be had, and you're kind of just looking at the best available. And it's like these guys can start for NFL teams right away. So I'd love to add an edge rusher, first of all. There's a couple guys on the board. I think, Swinson, Kennard, Sawyer, that kind of range of guys who were really productive in good conferences of football. Also a lot of defensive linemen. Anias Peebles is one that, Taylor, I'm sure you saw him at the Senior Bowl, wreck a couple plays in a row, get up, celebrate. And
we were next to each other. Like, did he just teleport?
Literally. And he got up in the backfield and kind of celebrated. And you see that energy on tape. So that's someone who I think is really disruptive. Ty Robinson as well, Josh Farmer, all these guys. In terms of DBs, I'd like to add a corner potentially. Quincy Riley, someone who I think is actually really good in man coverage, who, people have overlooked a little bit, maybe because he doesn't necessarily have the same speed or athleticism. A guy like Billy Bowman as well, who's at the Senior Bowl, who, more of your rangy safety who can kind of complement the prototypes that we already have. And then, quickly on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's worth adding another weapon, Gunnar Helm, maybe at tight end. He's someone who I think he's going to be a really good professional, very well-rounded skill set.
Hunter Henry.
Exactly. Xavier Restrepo, these guys who, they're falling maybe
so bad. That's
Amendola.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. And he's someone who, he fell because of that 40-yard dash, but that guy can play. Is he going to be their fastest guy? No, probably not. But he understands how to get open. He was productive every single year in college. Really sure hands, like one of the lowest drop rates in all of college football. And I think if you go to a system like Josh McDaniels, those guys are going to succeed. So I think there's a lot of talent on day 3 here.
Love it. All right. He is Scout D, Daniel Rotman. Follow him on X at Scout D NFL. For some of the best coverage, not only Patriots, but across the entire NFL draft out there. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Have another fun Saturday here as the Patriots continue filling out their board.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks.
I'll see you later.
Later. All right, that's Scout D. We got another guest already lined up in the queue. We are rapid fire here, getting ourselves into day 3 of the NFL draft. So please welcome Corey Cannon at Fake Corey Cannon on X, Daft on Draft. Corey, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing as we enter day 3 of the 2025 NFL draft?
I am surviving on coffee and little sleep, but we are rolling into day 3. So I already got my massive intake of caffeine in, so we're ready to roll.
All right, so you're one of my favorite spicy take guys. So we're going to start this off with Shedeur Sanders. What's your take on this situation? Huh? Or obviously that's going to fall under the umbrella because
I know.
I think before Dylan Gabriel, it was like, all right, yeah, like Shedeur probably wasn't a first round talent. I'm not shocked he slipped. That was when things jumped the shark, and it was like, oh, so the stuff that we heard probably was true. What's your take on the whole situation? Why is he falling? And who do we point the finger at here? Because everyone wants to know.
Yeah, it's probably majority in his camp. I think his camp probably overestimated how the league viewed him to not go through any part of the process, to skip the Shrine Bowl, to skip the Senior Bowl, to skip the Combine, to have a private throwing, like to do stuff at the pro day. So I think his camp probably overestimated what they thought the NFL thought of him. I do think that his dad was probably a little more involved than NFL teams are comfortable with. And I honestly think that's probably a big driver. I had heard as recently as this morning that Dion sat in on his meetings. So if that's the case, then you're already setting the expectation that you're going to be over involved, that you are going to kind of helicopter parent this thing. And so I do think the majority of the blame is probably in his camp, because when I look at Shedeur, do I see elite tools? No, he's an average athlete with an average arm, average plus-ish arm, but he does have elite accuracy. And I do think he has the wits to play at the NFL level and to get through like NFL ready concepts. And so I do think we jumped the shark big time. Like he should have gone in the second round latest. Like, but I do think when you're talking about a quarterback of his caliber, like if I'm a team taking a quarterback day one, I'm probably going to go for a guy who I think can operate my offense and who can throw the ball with accuracy and has a good enough arm. If I'm getting into day two, where I can say I don't have to commit any financial like security to this guy and I can move off this guy whenever I want. If I'm moving into day two, then I'm going to take a chance on a guy with some higher tools like a Jalen Milroe. Like if we're talking about day two, then why would I use a day two pick on a guy with average tools? Like that's where you want to swing. So I kind of get it from that extent, but we've long jumped the shark here with Tyler Shuck and Dylan Gabriel and like, come on, like what are we doing, man?
Yeah, that Tyler Shuck throw at the combine.
So that's where it's like, come on, but like, so I could get like taking the shot on, but like,
yeah,
we're drafting Tyler Shuck over these guys. Like
message sent.
That's where I'm like, yeah, come on.
It's wild. Like you get into day three and it's no longer this guy's even competing for a starting job or a backup role. It's like a dart throw at this point. And you never thought Shedeur Sanders would be in this boat. He can, as you said, Corey, he can play the position. So there's clearly some serious off the field concerns across the league, whether it is, like you said, Dion sitting in meetings, whether, I heard it as early as this morning on NFL Network, Pelissero saying that he was almost trying to dictate where he was going to go. And teams probably saw this and were like, that's not the level you're on right now. So it has been a shocking fall. We'll see if it happens today. I'm looking at the board now and but we did this yesterday at this time too, where, pick 33, Cleveland's there. Pick 36, Cleveland's there with the Jacksonville trade. But now it's Cleveland already took their guy, if you will, and Dylan Gabriel. The Raiders come up, maybe. I don't know the landing spot, and I couldn't see him going undrafted. But is there a chance?
Well, I think like we're to the point. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, and I'm only going to say that because like I don't know if you guys remember what year was that? 2016 with Lael Collins, where he had that like murder case that like, and he fell into day three, and then his agent said, "Don't pick him. He's not playing for you." They wanted him to go undrafted so they could choose the landing spot. So that's the only reason where I'm saying like.
That sounds like the next step in the Sanders process.
The Sanders camp might say, "Don't pick him. He's not playing for you. We want to decide where we're going now." Like
no more prank calls.
That could legitimately be an option at that point.
What an insane 72 hours! And this has quickly turned into like the craziest draft day story in a long time. Like I don't want to say I don't understand it, but the fact that as recently as Thursday, there rap sheets going on NFL Network saying he could go as high as 3. And now we're sitting here potentially being undrafted. So what a wild turn of events. But let's bring this to a Patriots/Ohio perspective for our friend Corey, because the Patriots take TreVeyon Henderson with the 38th overall pick. I see the CJ Stroud jersey behind you. So clearly I know you're familiar with those Buckeyes. So what do you make of that pick versus the other Ohio State back going before him? Is it too early for a running back? I say that with an inherent bias. What do you make of his fit in New England, and what should we expect from TreVeyon Henderson?
I think he's the perfect fit with Ramondre Stevenson. And it's a new regime, so like those bigger, more physical backs who are kind of limited to that bigger, more physical role don't always like translate into bell cowish, but kind of translate into, especially we've seen Josh McDaniels like in the Belichick era, they rode committees into the ground. Like that's just how they operated. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to go get a guy like TreVeyon Henderson, who is way more explosive, the most explosive back on the board at that point, who can create lightning in a bottle, who is unbelievable on third downs, both in pass pro and as a receiver out of the backfield. Like he's the best pass pro running back I've seen since Kyron Williams came out a few years ago, 2023 was that with Kyron Williams. Like the dude's just going to go in there and he's going to sock you. Like he's as reliable as they come. And again, I think the semifinal game against Texas, where Ohio State gave up that late touchdown going into half, and they're like, oh crap. And then with 7 seconds left in the half, TreVeyon Henderson breaks off a screen for a 70-yard touchdown. I'm like, so like, I think that's exactly the kind of player you're getting. My running back board was a little bit different. I was a huge Caleb Johnson fan who didn't end up going till 83 to the Steelers. But I had both Henderson and Johnson over Judkins. So I say that as somebody who covers the Browns, I would have taken Henderson. So I think the value is fine. We heard that the Broncos, if Judea Barron was on the board, we're going to take him at 20. So like the value's fine there with Travion Henderson. I think he fits that room. I think he fits the Patriot way that they're kind of trying to get back to by bringing in all of Belichick's old buddies to come back into town. So I think he's a perfect fit for the Patriots.
I think there's one guy that no one's going to be upset with the value for the pick, and that is Kyle Williams. Patriots got him in the top of the 3rd round. How do you see him fitting into this scheme? And do you think this is a guy by week 1 who could be a starter? Because obviously brings a level of explosiveness to the passing game they haven't had since the closest thing was Chris Hogan, and then before that probably Brandon Cooks. So how do you see him fitting, and is he going to unlock Drake May? Because I'm getting maybe too excited, but I really like the potential here.
I mean, he kind of has to.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the Patriots room is just a bunch of Z receivers who can't separate. Plus, Stephon, like whatever's left in the tank of Stephon Diggs. I think like Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker are all like very much the same kind of receivers that like limited athleticism who aren't very great separators but can make plays at the catch point. So like, to me, like this is a guy that has to hit for the Patriots because they didn't go out and make a big splash at wide receiver. Committing basically 1 year to Stephon Diggs, they can get out of that after a year, but like that's it. And we knew coming into the offseason the Patriots needed wide receiver help. And that's things didn't fall their way. Obviously, T. Higgins never hit the market. Things like that happened. That they wrote the blank check to Godwin and he said no. Those sorts of things happen, right? But like, wide receiver is still an issue for the Patriots, so they need Kyle Williams to come along here. Yeah.
They also bring in Jared Wilson from Georgia, a center who, I mentioned it probably 4 or 5 times on our shows at this point, but like Tom Pelissero floats that he could have been a 1st rounder at one point on Thursday. He ends up falling all the way to pick 95. Patriots trade back a couple spots and scoop him up. Looking at where this offensive line is now in New England, Will Campbell at left tackle, Jared Wilson, a potential starter at center, if not a fringe guy that sort of works in behind Garrett Bradbury and ultimately becomes the future. What do you make of this selection? And have they I want to get to your day 3, I guess, targets for New England in a minute, but with the 4 offensive picks, are they set? Are they how much do you think they've helped themselves with Drake May here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the entirety of their plan here. I love it as well because you saw some flashes of really brilliant play from Drake May when he did come in there, and I think for all that Gerard Mayo did or didn't do a year ago, I think he handled the Drake May situation as perfectly as you can by giving him first-team reps in practice, by having Jacoby Brissett's the ultimate guy to say like, hey man, you're going to start, but you're not really our starter. Like he understands that. Like I think because he's done it everywhere he's been, and so like. The Patriots have brought Drake May along as perfectly as they could have. So I think this is as perfect of a draft as you could have to try to build around Drake May. I think you could have argued they could have maybe gone wide receiver earlier instead of running back in round 2, but like outside of that, like that's it.
And the way it fell too, where they get back early, they go wide receiver late with a guy in Kyle Williams. Like I was skeptical about the early RB, if you will, but then the way it fell with how everything else went. Kyle Williams is an explosive player, as we mentioned, and you fill center while also moving back a couple spots and getting more draft capital. So it has, go ahead, Taylor.
I'm curious because it sounds like you want some more firepower for this Patriots offense. So entering day 3, I'm curious, are there any names that you think would be good fits for the Patriots that are left on the board?
Yeah, I don't know because like, I think my struggle with the Patriots is that like, all of their skill players are so young.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Diggs. But
we're getting Mac Hollins.
Yeah, that's true. So it's hard to come in and say like, yes, this day 3 player is going to come in and he's going to revolutionize the Patriots. I think they're doing the best they can. They're just still a very, very young football team. And I think that has to be kind of taken into consideration and into context as well.
They tackle offense here with the first 4 picks. Patriots centric, but I guess just day 3 in general. What are you looking for as we enter the final 4 rounds of the draft? Is there any, like, again, we talked about Sanders a little bit. Where do you see that happening? What are you expecting splash wise from the NFL draft today?
That's a good question. Day 3 day 3, the real splashes are like, okay, this is where veterans around the league start to get traded.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the stuff that because like, who's going to get picked on day 3? It's like, wow, that's a really splash pick. Like, I mean, the Sanders is going to dominate the coverage, but like, that's not really the like. I like Marcus Bowe. I'm surprised Marcus Bowe is still on the board, but that's not really a Patriots fit because they've just drafted a young offensive lineman or 2 young offensive linemen and drafted 2 last year. So I don't think they're going to be the team to take him. So I think that I'm trying to figure out where Marcus Bowe is going to go. Outside of that, there's a few more fun receivers. I don't think the Patriots had another young receiver to that room though. So
any like defensive sleepers in mind, because they've went. We were just talking with Daniel before our other guest. They've went offense 11 out of their last 12 draft picks.
Yeah, so there's a couple defensive tackles that I really like on the board, but I don't know, like, what do you think the Patriots do at defensive tackle after signing Milton Williams, and they still have Christian Barmore, whose health has been kind of a question. Like, do you think that's a priority for them heading into day 3?
I think they want a nose tackle. I think they want a space eater because you got Christian Barmore, who can do everything, but obviously in this scheme, probably going to be a 3 technique more than anything. Milton Williams, Keon White. And I know Chad Graff of The Athletic mentioned that they would probably be looking for more of a nose tackle. So I was thinking someone like a CJ West. I would love CJ West in this defense.
CJ West, Jordan Phillips would be the 2. I love Jordan Phillips out of Maryland as well. The dude's just rock solid. Like that dude was at Shrine and I saw him in person, and I already liked his tape heading into Shrine, and that dude's got some freaking tree trunks, dude. Like that's a big dude that does not get moved off the line of scrimmage. He's still
he's a nose, you think?
I think
I know Reese got him as a
20.
Yeah, so Reese got him as a 3 tech, I think.
So he could do a little bit of both, but his pass rush upside is a little bit limited right now. He's only 20, pretty raw. But I mean, he's explosive as all get out. He's probably the strongest player, one of the strongest players in the draft. Just like, and so you can look to develop him. He is still a little stiff, so there are some pass rush things that he's not going to do because like he's just linearly explosive. But like speed to power wins at the NFL level. So I do think that Jordan Phillips would be awesome too.
And we also saw Deion Walker in person at the Senior Bowl. Now, I was disappointed. Because, I mean, what if Terrell Williams can get him to stop standing straight up? What then?
Can you get a guy who's 6'7" with no flexibility to stop? Can you get that? Can you get a guy with
if
that?
You kind of use him like a rocket launcher. Use him like a rocket launcher to tilt him and just go poof.
That's my worry with Deion Walker because, well, I have 2 worries with Deion Walker. His lower half is very thin. Like he is very thin in his lower half. So his power, the power profile is like, is it there? Like, can he be an NFL defensive tackle? And the second thing is he's 6'6", 6'7", and pretty stiff. So there's no knee bends. So like there's no natural leverage to his game. Like, so like, that's where I really struggle with Deion Walker. It's like, how do I get you on the field then?
Right.
Like, what can you do? Like, so that's my biggest struggle with Deion Walker.
That's fair.
All right. Well, Corey, we'll get you out of here on this. Let our fans, let everybody know watching where they can find you and what you got coming for day 3 and the rest of the NFL draft coverage.
Yeah, so I run my own draft Substack, Daft on Draft. I have my own quarterback weighting metric. I'm known a lot for what I can do, like what I have done with quarterback ball placement and accuracy kind of stuff. And so daftondraft.football is that Substack. We have the Daft on Draft podcast. We did live streams on Thursday and Friday night following the draft, so some late nights there. But a lot of that stuff too. I also cover the Browns for Browns Wire, but that's kind of like my background gig right now to fund my fun projects. So
passion projects,
to fund my passion projects. But Daft on Draft is where I'll tell you if you want to hear some more draft stuff. Daft on Draft has you covered.
Love it. All right, actually, quickly then on the Browns, were you happy? Were you upset that they traded out of Travis Hunter?
So it's twofold. Like I'm holding 2 things at once. They got an unprecedented haul for moving back 3 spots. They got the 36th overall pick and a future 1 to move back 3 spots. Like that's a massive haul. But then the second part of that is like, but you didn't draft Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
So like you have to hold both those things at once. You got Mason Graham, you got Quinshon Judkins plus whoever that pick in next year turns into. But you don't have Travis Hunter. So like that's what I'm really like struggling to hold because like I think the fan base was also really attached to Travis Hunter because like the front office was just raving about him. The coaching staff was raving about him. Everybody's penning in Travis Hunter and every single mock draft. We're getting Travis Hunter. My God, the Browns are drafting Travis Hunter. And then the day of we got rug pulled. So I think that's part of it too. It's still really raw. Like you get rug pulled from Travis Hunter. But so that's the twofold thing here is like, you got a massive haul, but
Right.
you don't have Travis Hunter. So I'm trying to hold both those things.
Understood. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. In the chat, Keith says
Keith
as well,
goes ball.
draft. Great.
Appreciate that.
So,
that.
Yeah, go check them out, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Corey. We appreciate you as always.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, that is Corey. We have one more guest before the lead up to the NFL draft. However, before we get there, we do need to shout out our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll listen to them, and then we'll have Daniel Harms from the Draft Network in on the show. Here's Prize Picks. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And right now, you can cash in on the basketball playoffs. So do not miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court into your Prize Picks lineups, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, or anything. Make sure to just pick more or less, and you get up to 2,000 times your cash. You think LeBron James will get more than 24 points? Think Giannis will score more than 35? Cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. And all you got to do is sign up today, download the app, and use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Shout out Prize Picks. As always, head over there. Use that code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. And we are just at 20 minutes out of the 4th round, day 3 of the NFL draft beginning. So with that, we're going to welcome in Daniel Harms from the Draft Network to join us here, get us into the next, get us through the next 20 minutes here. Daniel, how has your draft weekend been? And are you running on just as little sleep as everybody else here?
You know, that's the thing, right? We all stay up, and then not just doing the live streams every single day. Not so much today. We're going to do more of a recap after, and then it's articles after. Like, you have to go through to put things together to be able to do that. But I'm doing actually pretty well. I've already had 2 cups of coffee. I'm full. I made breakfast this morning, so I got up and did that, adding more work to my schedule. How are you guys doing?
Also, for context, like, Dan is a father, so he actually somehow has his life together and in order. I envy you, sir. But on this end, I'm doing well. I said I was so tired last night, needed to go to bed, and then stayed up for another hour watching Kyle Williams stuff. So, you know, it's caffeine, but then, like, once it's about bedtime, I run on pure adrenaline. So, you know, there's a crash coming, but pushing off for a couple days.
We'll start it there, Taylor. You mentioned Kyle Williams. Let's talk about the Patriots' entire day 2 draft haul. Daniel, Patriots bring in Travion Henderson, Kyle Williams, and Jared Wilson. What did you make of what New England did on day 2 and how it sets them up, kind of riding in here to day 3?
This is outside of, offensive line first, then weapon. This is very much, hey, Drake May, here you go. We are going to give you some things to help you out because we saw everything that you could do with what limited protection and players you had around you last year. So let's go ahead and up the ante a little bit. Travion Henderson, what we saw last year is probably what you're going to get with him. I don't think he's going to be the 1, 2, 3, just hand him the ball whenever you want to workhorse. That's why they brought in Quinshon Judkins and made him the workhorse of the backfield, the guy that's going to come in and eat the carries and be the change of pace back for Travion Henderson, being able to come in, run outside, get the ball in space, and do some things like that. And so you bring him into a backfield with, yes, a guy who has some fumble problems, but Ramondre Stevenson can be the carry eater for you a little bit, and then you could start to see how this backfield will work. And I really appreciate the mindfulness of saying, look, Travion Henderson, if he didn't get hurt, might be the most talented running back in this class. I think you could make the case that even over Ashton Genty, if Henderson had not gotten hurt, would be a more talented player. So you take that, you say, we don't want to just continuously give him a bunch of carries, but we know the value. We understand what that's going to bring and how a quick option like that can create yards after catch and be explosive is impactful for an offense. So I really like that. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you've seen my Kyle Williams support for months now. I've been a very big advocate for Kyle Williams. I had a round 3 grade on him before the Senior Bowl. I got to see him at the Senior Bowl. Everyone talks about his TikTok releases and stuff. I don't care. He was messing around at Senior Bowl practices and one-on-ones. He's not going to do that in the game. When you turn on the tape, you see the footwork. You see how much he can create that quick separation. And we have talked about how possibly you could see a timing-based receiver like McMillan in this offense. But what Kyle Williams offers from a timing perspective, from a quickness perspective, and getting open quickly for your young quarterback, how valuable that's going to be to have a young player with timing that has good hands, good ball skills, yards after catch ability, all of that incorporated into an offense where I think he fits very well with how they have structured the wide receiver room. So I like those. And Jared Wilson, I mean, he's not going to be your starter right away. Garrett Bradbury is now your starting center for at least a year, maybe more. But if Jared Wilson comes in and is just really good, all right, Garrett, well, you had a good year in 2025, and we'll see you later. Appreciate the help. And we have our young center of the future. Yes, he's got short arms, but he makes up for that one by playing interior offensive line. I also think he has the athletic ability to play guard if you need him to. Ideally, he's a very good center. Eyes move around. He sees stunts coming. He sees blitzers. I think he's got decent vision at the next level. And that's where you want to see him kind of develop a little bit more inexperienced player. So for someone who has as little experience as he does out of Georgia, I think he's going to be able to take what he sees in this offense. Drake May, I think, is already a more advanced player from seeing different defensive formations, what he's going to see coming at him in terms of blitzes and rotations. That helps too. So you have Bradbury, an experienced guy, with Drake May to help Wilson get to that experience level. And so I really appreciate what the Patriots did to improve their offense on day 1 and 2.
And Elliot Wolf actually told us last night that he does actually see him being more of a kind of diverse type of player where he can play all 3 interior line spots. Wilson told us he can play all 3 spots. Elliot Wolf said he wasn't just a center-only prospect. And with Layden Robinson, he's in his 2nd year, finished on a high note, but still this is a new regime. We don't know exactly how they feel about him. Could you see that being a battle? And really, how do you see the left side of this Patriots offensive line potentially working out now that Will Campbell is – can we say penned in at left tackle? Maybe not Sharpie, but I think like some really aggressive pen is fair enough.
Yeah, we're looking at gel pen for Will Campbell right now. It's pretty clear for me that that's where you should put him at just to start. And then you'll get to see early on how he adjusts. And for me, it was never about the arm length for Will Campbell. It's the footwork in the upper body matched with the hand usage. And it's elite. And that's why you feel really comfortable with him playing left tackle. So I'm comfortable right there. I think that's going to be good. Him and Cole Strange next to each other. I think you're going to have some battles. Like you mentioned, Layden Robinson might be able to come in and do some of that. But specifically for Jared Wilson, would I be surprised if he was the starting center? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's the type of upside why you take him on day 2 right there. Because while he can be a really good backup for you, there's always the option that he just is really good right off the bat. Obviously the number 1 athletic testing interior offensive lineman maybe in this class. So you see the raw skills there. Hopefully he doesn't allow big, long defensive tackles to just walk him back. That was one of the bigger things you see, is that he just kind of lets guys get into his chest and then just extend. And that becomes a problem. Obviously the quickest way to the quarterback is right up the middle there. So I think just from center to the left side, you have an interesting dynamic because you put Jared Wilson in there. And again, maybe he just blows up and maybe you end up playing him at guard. Maybe you play him at center early. So there's 3 guys kind of vying for that guard spot. And for me, again, I don't watch exclusively the Patriots, but this is a very intriguing, I would say, can't battle, because I think any one of those 3 guys might end up being your starter at left guard, which is crazy.
All right, so that is day 2, how they filled this thing out. I'm glad you gave us some help with the Will Campbell saga. That is his arm length. I think that has been a talking point around this media realm for the last, not just the last 3 days, but the last 3 months. I feel like, when it felt like the Patriots could get him. He does feel like the left tackle of the future. At least they start him there, so we'll see what happens there. But Patriots now have 6 picks entering day 3 of the draft. They hit offense with all 4. we've mentioned it a couple times this morning, but they've taken offensive players with 11 of their last 12 draft picks. You wonder if they go defense here. Who are some of your targets / best available, not only for the Patriots heading into day 3, but really across the last couple of rounds in general?
Yeah, I loaded up day 2 on edge rushers. I think my entire board is just like stacked from rounds 2 and 3 with edge rushers, and there's still quite a few of them on the board. Braden Swinson, I think, is one of the most underrated pass rushers in this class out of LSU. Now, he might just be a designated pass rusher early. You see the run defense not necessarily there, but right, this is day 3. We're looking to get some guys that can rush the passer right now, because I think that right, that the Pats need. They need real juice as a pass rusher, and I think that Swinson has advanced hand usage. Not just with, I know everyone gets caught up in the how many pass rush moves does he have. It's awesome to have a full bag, right? It's great to have a full bag, but if you're sitting here in the 4th quarter and you're doing the same thing over and over again, how good is the bag? We have to see sequencing. You have to be able to set guys up. So whether it's footwork tied to hand usage, attacking inside, and then coming across with a cross chop or a slap and a rip, you want to be able to see advanced sequencing. And not every pass rusher has that. I think that Braden Swinson showed flashes of actually sequencing where he'll attack inside a gap early on in the game, or he'll just try to win the edge, and then he'll come back with a jab step outside and then across the face. That's what you want. You want to open up the B gap, or you want to condense that tackle inside to open up your arc a little bit so he can corner as well. He's an option there. I think Baron Sorrell, underrated, another maybe mostly a designated pass rusher early. You kind of see a theme here, right? There's some designated pass rushers that are, for me,
that's what they need, though.
I know I gave day 2 grades on them, and when you're as good at something as I think these guys are, I'm more likely to put you in that realm. I did the same thing with Vernon Broughton out of Texas, a really good run defender. End of the 3rd round, I'm like, hey, I don't care if you can't rush the passer. I'm going to stick you here on day 2 anyway, because you're really good at one thing. And then maybe some guys that have some versatile usage. Terrion Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia, guy who can play anywhere along the defensive line in my mind. You can put him at 1 if you really, really wanted to, because he's just a long body, physical dude. And I like what he offers from that versatility standpoint. Still raw. I talked about this ad nauseum in terms of how Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, all these defenses just say, we want the 5-star recruit. We don't know what we're going to do with them. We're not going to develop them, but we want them anyway. And you see this happen over and over and over again. So I think he is a guy who has a lot of developmental upside. And then maybe more of a swing for the fences, because I think David Walker out of Central Arkansas is a very unique pass rusher. I watched him a little bit getting ready for the Senior Bowl. I thought he flashed pretty well. He's just got a motor. That dude is just like, I'm going to throw everything at you. Something eventually is going to work. And I'm okay with that on day 3 specifically. So I really think that those type of players make a lot of sense. Maybe my favorite pass rusher left, Antoine Powell-Ryland out of Virginia Tech.
Yes, thank you.
Speed. Fast hands. I know he's got 31-inch arms. Again, we're talking about how you use the hands. And you're going to be a pure designated pass rusher. I don't want to see you taking double teams. I don't want to see you setting an edge. I don't want to see you taking on a puller, just coming to pull your face in. I want to see you rushing the passer. So again, on day 3, he is maybe my favorite pass rusher left of all of these guys. I think he has the top tier speed off the edge. Little inconsistent at times. But for me, the edge position is chock full of targets, not just for the Patriots, but for this entire class. And I think you're going to see the first maybe 10, 15 picks just kind of thrown pass rusher at it.
I think we were standing next to each other at the combine when Elliott Wolf was saying how deep he thought the defensive line class was this year. I want to get your thoughts on nose tackles as well, because I think that's a spot they're going to address. But I really want to hear what you have to say about the slot corners that are left right now, because Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez, those are your outside guys, right? You can stack up at corner, but I just think it would be smarter to go inside, because Marcus Jones, I love the player, but last year of his contract, a guy who gets hurt, and he doesn't really fit the mold of what Vrabel likes for his slot corners, because unlike Belichick, where he'll put the safeties in the slot, so you don't really need the bigger guys, Vrabel says, no, my slot guy is taking on pullers. He's doing everything. Who do you think fills the role of being able to be physical against the run in the slot, but also being able to hang in man coverage? Because it sounds like the Patriots are trying to play cat. You got that cat, I got this cat.
Yeah, you're looking at a couple of guys that have that dog in them and the footwork to match. And the number one guy actually still on my board is Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. I know he played outside, but he's a smaller framed guy. I think he's going to be a nickel. Plus, you do have outside versatility. I think the ball skills and the footwork and the hand usage match a guy who can give you some reps, kind of in the same vein as we saw Mike Sanders still out of Michigan last year. Maybe not the same build. I think he's a bit skinnier than Mike. Mike just looks, even though he's small, like he just looks like he's built differently. And that's what you saw at Washington this past year. A guy who's just like, hey, we're going to kick you outside and you're just going to be awesome. And he's like, yeah, I am. And I think that Kobe Bryant brings that dog mentality. He does not care how big he is. He doesn't care how big you are. He's going to come and lay his body around. And that's the kind of player I want to see in this kind of a defense. He's a target for me, for the Patriots. I might be blind, but Jabbar Muhammad out of Oregon, same kind of player. I know he played on the outside for them, and at Washington before, but he has the footwork, the tools, the physical nature to play in the slot in my mind. So he's another player as well. I, again, have a day 2 grade on him, lower in the 3rd round, but still the smarts and the want to do anything that's asked of you transfers a lot to the NFL. And I think Muhammad offers that. Another name here, Mac McWilliams out of UCF. He's another quick twitch guy. You see, there's a theme here. These guys are all players that maybe played outside a little bit, inside a little bit in college, but they have the dog mentality because they are smaller. So they have to have that mentality to stick around, not just on the outside, but to come inside in the nickel. And then sometimes offenses are like, hey, we see a small guy in the nickel, let's run at him. These guys aren't going to just go down easy. Are they going to tackle them all the time? No, but they're going to do their best to hold up so everybody else can float.
Make a mess. Just make a mess.
Right? Just do what you can there. So those are, I think, 3 names at corner that fit the nickel mold, but also have outside versatility in case you absolutely need that. I think that's a really useful tool right now in the NFL.
Kobe Bryant's my favorite guy in that group because when I watched him against Travis Hunter, you could tell that was a game that he was looking forward to and he wanted to prove a point. He was all over Hunter. He was like making contact. He was in his ear and everything. And I was like, and the thing is, he was hanging with him in coverage.
Yeah.
And if he was to play outside, I love how he compliments Gonzo because you put Gonzo on the boundary. Kobe can play that off coverage where he can make plays on the ball and he's not a liability with his size because he's so twitchy. I love that call out.
All right, Daniel, I want to get you out of here with this. We're less than 5 minutes away from the start of day 3, the start of round 4, and Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. What do you make of this entire saga? It's become obviously the talk of this draft, if not one of the craziest things we've seen in an NFL draft in quite some time, because you see guys fall down the board 1st round, then, Geno Smith goes early 2nd round, or, the Aaron Rodgers obviously late, but this is like, for what people thought this guy could be and where he could be drafted, this is relatively unprecedented. What do you make of it? Do you think he goes today? What's your read on the Shedeur Sanders situation?
It's wild to me. And again, I had a 2nd round grade on both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I did not have either of them as 1st round quarterbacks. And that came through a lot of kind of fighting with myself. We see quarterbacks in sometimes in the same vein as media and the NFL where they get more value because they are quarterbacks, and the aura surrounds that surrounds Shedeur is intoxicating at times. And I partial to it as well. I get caught up in it, and I expected him to be drafted in the 1st round, and then when he wasn't, I was like, okay, I understand that. Like, I get the tape. I see that. When he wasn't selected on day 2, and I saw Dylan Gabriel and Tyler Shock, and would have been a player I drafted on day 2 as well, purely because I want him on the field.
Right.
Now, there comes a point where I don't have any inside information in terms of the interview process. I don't hear what happens. We get little snippets here. Right. We get unnamed sources. We get coaches that don't put their names on things, that put these things out to the media, and which isn't the whole story. It's hard for me to believe that purely based on the tape, he's not a day 2 player. So there's a lot that goes off field. In my mind, Shedeur comes with Dion. It's a package deal. Any coach that wants to draft Shedeur Sanders has to deal with, if I lose games this year, people are going to be calling for my head and wanting Deion Sanders as the head coach.
Yep.
regardless of the contract that he signed in Colorado. And I also, again, I understand that maybe he did not interview as well because he is confident. And that may be putting
That's
it
very nice. That's very nice.
Yeah.
It's a very arm's way of putting it.
So I think when you rub people the wrong way, there is a clip of him throwing his offensive line under the bus after a loss.
Yeah.
You have interview processes going bad. You have him not doing anything throughout the winter, throughout the draft process, not testing, not doing anything. Teams are like, all right, other guys are wanting to do stuff.
Sure.
They aren't looking like they deserve to be drafted in the first round, which I understand. I also kind of want my quarterback to have some of that too. I want them to be a little bit of that. I think there's a little bit more to it than just that stuff. So I would have drafted him on day 2. So a lot of this is confusing. A lot of it looks bad on both the NFL and Shedeur and Dion.
Yeah.
But all in all, I'm not surprised that he was drafted in the first round. I'm surprised that he's on the board now.
I kind of just had a eureka moment when you mentioned like him not participating, because remember the report came out that NFL teams are pretty pissed that people are sitting out and not doing the process.
Correct.
And they're like, and it was starting to rub them the wrong way. Man, I don't love, the collusion talk. Sometimes it's a lot, but it was true with Lamar. And frankly,
it feels that way.
It does start to feel like when Dylan Gabriel's getting taken before you, clearly a message is being sent. Yeah. And it feels like Shedeur is now like the perfect poster child, because it's not just that he sat out, it's everything else. And kind of that, like the tape didn't back up the persona that he's kind of created. So, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like a conspiracy theory, but because both sides, like you said, look bad. But maybe he is being made an example of, because this is just a trend of people not wanting to participate in the pre-draft process.
It's wild. It's a wild story. It's one of the crazier things we've seen in some time around the NFL draft. We'll see if he goes today. The draft has officially begun. So, Daniel, we'll get you out of here. Let's go into day 3. Appreciate you joining us. Let our viewers know where they can find you and what you got cooking over the next couple of days.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I always love getting to come on here and talk with you guys, talk with my buddy Tayler. You guys can find me on Twitter at InHarmsWay19. I post clips all the time. I have tons and tons of draft reviews on the Draft Network YouTube page. You can find me all there. I've got some more on rgrfootball.com where I cover the Chiefs. So those are the 3 places you can find me.
Love
Keep
it.
crushing it, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having. Thanks for coming on. Sorry, appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us.
It's day 3. It's mush brain, but thanks
exactly.
For coming on. Appreciate you. All right, it is 12:01. The 4th round, the 3rd day of the NFL draft has officially begun. Who's that now? There we go. Who the heck are you?
Talk about mush brain. Holy jeez.
I think this is the most lively we've been in the past 3 years, because this is actually a fun draft. No,
isn't it great? That's what I was thinking about today. And again, resetting it all. First off, I got to say, the viewers here watching this stuff, all of it, who've been along the whole way. Thank you guys so much. I'm not kidding. But also hats off to the guys you've brought on who've come on and talked about this stuff. Elite ball knowers. And again, I just think that it is amazing how much stuff is out there and people are grinding and doing this work throughout this process. And this is the Super Bowl, there's guys who've been grinding tape, and you guys among them of, 3 months, 4 months, looking at these guys who really, really, really know what they're talking about. And it's really, really impressive. So hats off. I love Daniel too. He's one of my favorites there, who you just finished up with, great way he delivers his information, but also just knows his stuff. He's really great. So you should be following all of these guys throughout. I know you ended on the Shedeur Sanders stuff. It is, again, the major draft storyline today. I don't know whether you guys have predictions or not in terms of what you think happens, because it is interesting. I was on with Greg Bedard last night. We did a late night pod. That's out there if you guys want to check it out, with his thoughts on the Patriots day 2. By the way, the grumpiest guy on the beat loved all of it, just so you guys know.
I was stunned.
All of it.
I thought, because usually I go to Greg to kind of take off my rose-colored glasses. Yeah. Yes, like I just make sure I'm like, all right, like what am I not seeing? I was like, damn, okay, maybe the Vrabel era is as good as we think it is so far.
Yeah, it's like
He knew it too. He said it. I saw his intro. He was like,
he was almost embarrassed.
Yeah.
He was like, I hate to say this, but I love it. Because
it's like the meme of the guy in the corner, but it's like they don't know I'm having fun.
Yeah.
But didn't have a lot of takes on the Sanders stuff. What we talked about on that front is what I find incredibly interesting, or maybe it was just of all of the media I've consumed over the last few days. It's super interesting because the teams that passed on him that have a quarterback need have decided he's not good enough for us. I don't want to bring him in here and have him compete for a starting job, which means right now he's into backup territory. And again, the backup, do you want that level of sideshow interrupting a veteran? Like, how many teams have the infrastructure where you can deal with that, where you're like, okay, Sanders isn't a threat? If he were here, the Patriots got rid of friggin' Joe Milton because they viewed him as a threat to like Drake May's ability to just go about his business unencumbered, not worried that there's somebody in there who's like gunning for his job. You bring the primetime show in here, that's going to be a problem. I mean, is there a possibility he goes undrafted completely?
Yeah. So, who is it that actually brought up why? Was it Corey?
Corey Kinnan had mentioned, John, that when Lyle Collins with the Cowboys a couple years back, when he was facing a murder charge, and then it ended up being he was completely exonerated. But once it got to day 3, he was telling teams, his agent was telling teams, don't draft me. I want to choose where I go at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe Shedeur does the same thing. And that would just add to that cocky confidence attitude where like, all right, F you guys, I'm doing this my way. And maybe that is the case heading into day 3. Because again, I mentioned it last night. Like when you draft a guy on day 1, he's coming in and you're completely building your franchise around him. Day 2, it's more of he can compete / he's a viable backup, but we see him as a part of the room. Now it's just dart throws. So what team is going to throw a dart with all of this perceived baggage on a guy like this? And maybe it is, well, he does have the skill set. He was a day 2 grade, but all of this around him. So let's take a chance and no harm, no foul. But at the same time, if he's fallen this far, there's still other players on the board. Maybe teams just say, we'll sign him as a UDFA, and I don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole here with a draft pick.
Yeah,
you got to protect yourself and your franchise. You got to put yourself in a position where you're financially not tied to him, and you also have to be able to go up on the podium and say, we are not handing him anything. He is going to earn a roster spot. You can't say that if he's a first-round pick. It's kind of tough to say if he's a second-round pick. Obviously, third round is where it started to get kind of weird. But yeah, if he goes undrafted, it's like he is just like anybody else. He needs to make the roster. But it's still going to be a shit show. So
it's a shit show no matter what. That's what I haven't understood is like if you didn't like it, but that's why I'm like, if you didn't like him at 3, if you're not if you're the Steelers, for example, and you're passing on him for backup running backs or whatever it is that you're drafting in the 3rd round or stuff like that, at that point, you're not serious about having him come in and compete for your starting job, because if you were and you're in their position and that dire of a need, you make the move. That's what's interesting. The teams that passed by the point that they picked in that 3rd round to no longer want him or take him must mean that they're just not interested in any of it. So it's crazy. Someone asked here if we tip picks. Yeah, when they come across, we put them out there. We don't have to do it across the board, but we do want to get the Patriots news out there as quickly as possible. And that's what we're here for, is the Patriots are, when are they, how far up? Are they 5 picks in this round?
They are, the Jaguars are on the clock and they are 4th. They're 2nd. The Patriots are 4th. So
Patriots 4th, not 5th. So that's going to come up pretty soon. Again, just to alert everyone what we're going to do here. We're going to hang. We'll get through this pick. We'll probably stick around for a little bit after and just see how things develop. But the Patriots have 2 5th rounders as well. Nothing else in the 4th round. Taylor, how much do you want to see them try to kind of package something and get back up? Because again, if you just do the general math on draft and, day up to day 3, you could be looking at day 1 starters potentially, or future starters. Day 4, you're looking at guys who are almost certainly making the roster out of training camp just based on where you took them. Then you start your dart throws with round 5 and on. And so they've got 3 5th-round picks, I believe. I'd love to see them try to get back up into the 4th round. What do you think they need the most here? Because again, in the 4th round, I mean, look, in the 5th, you can address special teams, kicker, whatever it is. You need those later picks for stuff like that. But you're still looking at a contributor here with this pick, a significant one. What need do you most want to see them address?
I'd like to see them beef up the defensive line. They've addressed the offensive line. So now I'd like to see nose tackle. I know Chad Graff reported that they are looking for someone in that vein. So I would think in the mold of like a space eater, but someone who can also get upfield. So like we talked about with some of our guests, CJ West, Jordan Phillips, they kind of fit that mold. Also edge rusher, just someone with juice. Daniel Harms listed several guys where they may not be, anything against the run, but they can get after the passer because they are really juiced up. Like Antoine Powell-Ryland is a guy that I was excited that he brought up. Braden Swinson is also someone that it was reported clashed with coaches, and just everybody so far has had a stellar character, track record. So I don't know if they're going to go for that. Now, of course, we were kind of saying the same thing when it came to last year. And then on day 3, Javon Baker kind of threw things out of whack. Maybe they learned from that. Again, this is the day where you take those dart throws, but I'd love to see the defensive line addressed. Also slot cornerback, because Marcus Jones gets injured, unfortunately, as much as I like him, also undersized for a variable slot corner, and he's in the last year of his deal. It just feels like the writing's on the wall.
Yep. What do you think? What are you looking for here? What do you want to see? Like top need? And again, there's a lot of players out here, but if they were going to address a positional need here, what do you see?
I say, edge rusher / I know Taylor just mentioned it, but somewhere along the defensive line, because, they loaded up on defense throughout free agency, but as far as young developmental players, they don't have a ton on the defensive side. The offense is kind of loaded with, a bunch of young guys. We mentioned a few times, but 11 of their last 12 draft picks have been on the offensive side of the football. The only defense, like a true young defensive player, really is Marcellus Dial, if you think about it that way, as far as draft classes the last 2 years. So they need some young juice on defense, and Daniel Harms just kind of ran through the edge rusher class and how deep it is. Elliott Wolf had mentioned it as well. So I go edge rusher / defensive tackle, and I know Taylor had just mentioned as well, but cornerback is a sneaky need as well here, given where the rest of the room is at.
Receiver it is. The Tennessee Titans just took Shamir DK, I believe is pronounced.
Yes.
Here. DK. So that's that off the board. Look, Elliott Wolf flat out said it. And again, I have to applaud the Patriots here for just their approach. It is interesting, right? You say don't draft for need. They clearly drafted for need this year, right? But it feels different because they drafted closer to consensus. And so I think people are more okay with it. And last year, they kind of went off the board a little bit, like, almost right away in terms of reaching a little bit, where Baker might have been the first player they took, after Drake May, naturally, who was possibly consensus had him higher than where he was drafted. Everyone else felt like crap, I need a receiver and I missed on all my guys, so I'm going to take this guy, where they might not necessarily have been in love with Polk. And then the lineman as well, kind of the same ball game where, I needed a tackle and I didn't get any of the guys I wanted. So crap, this didn't feel like it this year. This felt like I've got 3-4 needs, but globally, I just want to address offense and get Drake May help. And then you went about it in the ways that you went about it here. So again, potentially 2 day 1 starting linemen, a running back who, if he's not going to start day 1, you're going to find a way to get the ball in his hands 10 to 15 times, and a receiver that's going to compete. So Mike, I know you didn't love it yesterday after the benefit of maybe an hour's worth of sleep and watching some film or listening to other people talk about it. Do you feel better about the Henderson pick? Because I know that wasn't you didn't jive with it. Personally, I just watched hours and hours of him in pass pro, and it was like the best thing I've ever seen, just pancaking dudes. But have you come around a little
with the rest of the haul they got on day 2? Absolutely. Because, I wanted them, and I I am guilty to want to always draft for need and not to draft the best player, because if you need a receiver, go get a damn receiver. I don't care if you have the best linebacker on the board, but he's not going to fit where where you have needs, because you still need these offensive weapons around Drake May. So long story short, only knowing Henderson was the pick and not seeing the rest of the board, I was a little bummed out, because inherently I'm just not a huge running back early type of guy. I think you need more than that, and it's sort of plug and play. However, Kyle Williams at 69 was an excellent pick. I think he brings juice to your offense. And when guys fall out of the first round and towards that pick 38 range, they kind of fell out of the first round for a reason. And then there's the running backs, because people don't love running backs that early. So felt like a good pick. Kyle Williams at the next pick brings juice to the offense. And then the Jared Wilson pick I absolutely love for a multitude of reasons. One being that he was considered potentially a first-round pick. Secondly, they trade back 20 spots from 77 to 95 twice, pick up more capital, and then get a guy who could potentially be a day one starting center. So with more context, I've warmed up to the Henderson pick, and I think they've done a great job so far throughout the first 3 rounds.
Real quick, Giants are on the clock. Patriots are up next. Go ahead, Taylor.
That's why I don't like judging a day 2 by the second round. Like, if you have more picks, that context matters, because you get upset. Maybe you don't like the value of a running back. Then they get a wide receiver who, if you listen to anybody, it sounds like he's going to more than outlive his third round draft stock. And then you get a Jared Wilson who, like you said, could have been a first round pick. That value works out just fine. Now I'm curious, where do you guys want to see them with this pick? What do you want to see them address?
There's a couple tight ends on the board that I do find intriguing, because I don't think you can ride out the Hunter Henry. And there's a couple tight ends who profile as kind of like their profile is Hunter Henry-esque sort of players, not blazing fast.
Hunter Helm is literally Hunter Henry. They both were 85. It's crazy.
I think also you can start to look down the road here, with these picks, and you're not looking for day one starters. You're looking for depth, and you're looking for people who might be able to kind of grow into it. And look, I'm not going to say I'm all set with defense. You definitely need some help, and you guys are right. And along the D line would make sense. Patriots are on the, but
the Giants took Cam Scatterbo.
Oh, there it is. That was a hot name, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I like Cam Scatterbo. He was my top. When I did my list of my third down backs, he was my top guy. I just hope he protects himself, because he runs like he truly does not care if he live or dies on any given carry.
Mm-hmm.
I would be up for any pass rusher pretty much besides Jack Sawyer. I just don't see it. I watched him this morning. I was going to post some clips.
People are loving Jack Sawyer. There's a lot of.
I think it's because he reminds them of Vrabel and maybe Ninkovich. And he reminds me a little bit of Ninkovich, but I just don't think he's what they need. He's not very explosive. I don't think he's a good enough run defender to justify even taking him. I think he's very situationally sound. I think he's a smart player, but I just don't think he has the physical upside to justify taking him when the Patriots need someone who's juiced up and can get after the passer in obvious passing situations.
He's the ultimate culture guy. He adds to the culture vibe.
Yeah, take him in the 6th round. That's where culture is.
Yeah, culture. Guys who they love to compete. Okay.
I think he's going to slip more than people think.
Yeah.
Now we'll see.
They take him. Oh God.
Yeah. Let's see here as we kind of are watching.
Refresh.
What did you guys think of Scatterbo, by the way? Because again, there's some people who loved him and some people are like, nah, man,
people who don't like him is because he's not fast.
He's not.
He's so fun. He's good at everything else. He's just not fast.
Yeah.
That's it. And he's like shaky. And honestly, that's one thing I was surprised by. He's pretty shaky in blitz pickup.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Oh yeah. We're having X issues on draft day. Thanks, guys.
Did we disappear?
Shocker. We're live on YouTube still.
We're live on YouTube.
Our Twitter streams went down.
But some of the Twitter streams are struggling right now. So, I can't communicate with you if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, but come over here. Amit, you can send out, or Bailey, send out a notification that the stream is struggling on X right now, so you might want to hop over to YouTube if that's where you were watching. Pats are on the clock. We'll keep refreshing here. We're doing what you guys are doing so we can react, and we will see. Guys, did you do your thing?
Tops? Yeah, they're somewhere.
You did your top?
Yeah, they're somewhere. I'm not sure where.
They're not here for me. Guys, do we have those?
They're not loaded in. I know that they were working on them, but I don't know if they.
Oh, they're not loaded in?
No. Come on, Patriots. What do you got for us?
What is this? Woodshine? Woodshine?
Okay.
Woodshine? Logshine? Longer beam.
What?
Ryan Longerbeam.
That's what they got?
Yeah,
Rucker.
that's the hint.
Who did that? Oh, Reese?
Yeah. He's getting the clues. Robert Longerbeam. So the Patriots got their slot corner. Okay.
What's he? It's Lager and Son. That's what he did.
I think it's Longerbeam.
No, but that's why Mike Reese put it looks like a mug of beer and sunshine. No,
I
that's a
think
log. It's a
wood.
log. I thought it was a mug of ale. It's a
Yeah.
log.
Logger beam.
I'm hoping. Or Woodshine? Or is it
Is he-
Woodshine? Or maybe not. Maybe I should delete it. Oh man.
Woodshine?
Maybe I'm wrong.
Woodson.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Woodson.
Woodson, I'm wrong.
Craig Woodson.
Damn. Yeah, I'm a reporter. I have to delete that, or else I would have just owned it. I
Craig
was
Woodson.
excited. Is it
Is
Craig
that-
Woodson?
I don't know.
That's what he's suggesting.
Yeah, that
believe.
would make more sense. Okay, a safety. All right, so looking up scouting report on him now in the Beast. Craig Woodson. All right. Craig Woodson taking a lap.
Is this like a safety who they're going to play as a slot guy? You think?
Yeah. So I'm looking up his. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, 6
Oh,
feet,
no,
200
Craig
pounds. He ran a 4.45. With a 36-inch vertical, so he's got some athleticism as well.
Dane Brugler says controlled fluid mover, stays on the plan vertically in his turn and run, has good feel for spacing in the deep third to influence multiple routes, good timing when attacking the catch point to dislodge the ball from the man, arrives without going through receivers, one coverage penalty over the past 3 seasons, accelerates through the hips as a tackler, productive playing at the line of scrimmage, stopwatch speed shows up as backside chaser, plenty of special teams experience, started all 38 games the past 3 seasons. NFL scouts say he is an A-plus person. Duh. He's a variable guy. Now, weaknesses must be acknowledged. More smooth and dynamic in his movements. Trusts his eyes, but can be manipulated for that very reason. Plays with good speed, but not enough to easily recover from a misstep. Needs to eliminate zigs and zags from pursuit angles. Required season-ending surgery after injuring knee during 2021 fall camp. Will be 24 on draft day. So he's an older guy. Give me some Deron Harmon vibes, maybe.
Is this a center fielder Devin McCourty type in your mind?
It sounds like it, yeah.
Something they've needed. I know Barth's been pounding the table for that for a while. Brugler had a 6-round grade on him for what it's worth. Maybe a reach. I don't know, but I mean, again, I'll
let's see. Yeah. I'll see. Look at the consensus. Big Board had him 192.
Okay, so that's a relative reach, but
Yeah, when you get Taylor Googling in the 4th round, it's a reach. I'll tell you that. This feels like an old.
I'm a little
this is
rusty on my
Belichick
J3
pick.
picks this year.
This is
I wonder
this is a Tavon Wilson. This is a what?
I think he does fit a need though. And honestly, in day 3, reaches are much less egregious because you're taking your guys.
Yeah.
So I don't really mind it as much.
although it is like an early day 3 reach where like when it's 6th, 7th round, even 5th round, it's like, okay, you have your eyes on someone, but you wonder if, I mean, they also don't have a ton of time on day 3. So it's like you could start trading or trying to trade back, but you only have a limited time. So you call and you get your things in quick. So I wonder if there was a thought to go back on the board a little bit, but it sometimes, again, teams just have guys graded out differently. So I don't necessarily hate it. I mean, there were some other safeties on the board. Your Billy Bowman Jr. from Oklahoma was someone we've talked about a couple times on the show, Taylor. RJ Mickens from Clemson, but Malachi Moore from Alabama is somebody who was a later round safety that they could have targeted eventually, but they needed defense. They took defense. Edge rusher was another position that I would have liked to see them take at this point, but at the end of the day, they go Craig Woodson. That is the pick at 106. And then we have 3 5th-round picks coming up a little while. We'll see what they do there. I wonder if they
but for what it's worth, can I curse?
Yeah.
EJ Snyder just DM'd me saying, "Get fucked. God damn it. Quit it." So he's happy with the pick.
Okay.
Wait, those are positive things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
No, he's saying, he said Woodson rules. He's like,
Okay.
"Get out of here. I'm mad at you."
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's promising. I wonder if they use any of these 3 5th-rounders to try and trade up again here in the 4th round.
That would be the
Yeah.
hope. So we'll hang on here for a little bit and talk about it. And guys, I was curious, some of the other guys, day 3 targets that you put on here. Let's go through some of these and see who's available and who might be available if they were to trade back in or later in the 5th. You mentioned here Sawyer was a guy you liked, Mike. Taylor not so into it. Walk through some of these other guys.
Yeah, Sawyer's just another one of these variable culture guys. People love Jack Sawyer as a variable comp. I wouldn't have necessarily loved it here at the 106 pick. Granted, I probably would have talked myself into it. Braden Swinson's another guy who I had number 1. Taylor mentioned earlier in the show that he may have clashed a little bit with some LSU coaches. He was also an LSU teammate of Will Campbell. You wonder if he might be banging the drum for him and saying, no, we can get him on the right track here. But along that front, along the defensive front, I have 4 defensive front players in the 2 edge rushers, Joshua Farmer from Florida State at defensive tackle, and Ty Robinson from Nebraska, who is the guy who fell in a lot of our mock draft simulations, Taylor, and we didn't want to take him because it was a respect the board situation. He's still available. If he ends up available at one of these 5th spots, he's someone I would pounce on. And then Kobe Bryant as well, the cornerback out of Kansas we just talked a lot about with Daniel Harms. But I'm going defense here on day 3. I think they've addressed offense. Not that they've addressed offense enough. You can never have enough weapons around Drake May. But with the pipeline and kind of building out the rest of the roster, I think you need some dart throws on defense. So that's where I would go for the rest of this Saturday.
And now I do my picks.
Yeah, you could do yours. Let me get this one out of here.
Oh, sorry.
Here we go.
Yeah, so for me, I like Kyle Kennard. He was my favorite edge rusher who's still available, and it's a position of need, probably the most significant for the Patriots. Kyle Kennard gave Will Campbell problems, so I'd love to see that rematch and also just quote tweet my compilation of their cut up and say rematch, but that's me being selfish. Still a very good player who fits a need. Also was connected. I think he took a 30 visit with the team. CJ West is my favorite nose tackle. He's a big guy. I think he is a penetrator, but he can also handle multiple types of assignments for you. I'm going to put that back up. Deion Walker, I'm honestly going to take him off now. Corey kind of talked me out of it because he physically.
That is typo. I took it off for a reason, Taylor. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Yeah. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can keep talking through them. Yep.
I don't know who else was on the list, to be honest. Oh, yeah, Joshua Farmer, really good penetrator. He shined at the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
And Chris Paul, I know the bootleg guys are very high on him. So another guy. Why did we take it off? Is there? Oh, I see. Okay.
3, 4, 5 are doubled up, but
Okay,
it's day 3.
The infant is there. Yeah.
I would have noticed eventually.
John texted us this morning, and now we're throwing up all over ourselves that we were flawless through 2 days. And
I
now
said
here
I
we go.
want to jinx a perfect game.
Yep.
But yeah, I still would like, if they could trade up, I'd like to see them do it to address the defensive line still. But I just don't want to talk a ton about Craig Woodson because he's not a guy I watched. I was focused more on the top 100 guys, but it does sound like he's a good fit for what they need. Just, let me do more of a film dive and give a better perspective. But I haven't seen anybody upset about the pick who actually is familiar with the player.
Yeah. So, I'll do this because this is what I do. But I'll play devil's advocate a little bit because, as I said, I really, really, really like the first 2 days of the draft.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Brian tweeted, Craig Woodson was singled out by Daniel Jeremiah as one of his favorite late round players on Pardon My Take. He said, one of those guys where I don't know what I'm missing. Like, he's got enough size. He takes the ball away. He ran in the mid 4.4s. I talked to the guys at Cal, like, super smart, great leader. Cal's been a sneaky good secondary factory over the years. He's one. I think, to me, I have him like in the early mid 3rd round, and maybe he goes in like the 5th round when it's all said and done. But I think you'll look up and he'll be starting next year. So I think like Marcus Epps is a good guy from to learn from. Obviously Peppers and Duggar. Although I will say Peppers has been their free safety. I think he's been a very good free safety. But one, he had the knee injury last year. TBD on how he's recovering. And with everything that happened last year, I just wonder if Vrabel sees that as a kind of reason where he's looking to potentially replace him, because you got Marcus Epps and now you got this guy. That's a lot of guys that play center field for you. And when you have a defense that doesn't use their safeties in the slot, well, then where are all these guys playing? Because he only really uses 3 safeties when they play dime in obvious passing situations. So this is starting to signal to me maybe that Jabril Peppers could be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
As someone like he had his captaincy taken away last year. That's not insignificant. I think he is a player purely on the field is exactly the kind of guy that Vrabel wants, but we've seen them kind of purge leaders before. It's a lot of guys playing a similar role. So I wonder what happens there.
Okay. I mean, look, you're always going to find people that like it. I'll play the devil's advocate here. From starting from Will Campbell on down, there's been a faction of people, let's not fully detractors, just people wondering, is there an overemphasis on culture, football guys, X, Y, and Z? And the reason I point this out is like, that's what Gerard Mayo was talking all about. Culture. We got to change the culture, and this obsession of basically erasing everything that was done the way before. Belichick in the last years of his drafting was very much, I want guys I can coach. I want guys I like. I want guys I can whatever. It kind of passing up on talent. I believe Vrabel in his press conference, his pre-draft press conference, that was one of the things that he said is there's really talent is the thing that matters most. Right? Didn't he say something to that effect?
Yeah, Giardi asked him about building a culture and how you weigh that versus guys that are, talented. He goes, well, we want good football players. That's the first thing.
Yeah. So, that being the thing, but there's a lot of emphasis on how good how good these guys are for the locker room and their culture and good people and love football and X, Y, and Z, everyone else wants, just give me the talented head case, and then you figure out how to deal with them. Like, that's your job, get them to play. Any concern that there is all too much emphasis, or does this feel like one of those, I got my guy, I looked at, I love,
I'll say on that.
Because I also will say, at this point in the draft, you could have rankings that are 100 spots apart in terms of people's boards. So Patriots might have very well had him ranked exactly here, and it's not just a guy that they like.
Quickly on that, Taylor, I'll let you go, but just on that sort of grabbing talent with also some baggage / not kind of worrying about the off-field stuff, like Javon Baker at this point last year was someone who they just said, we don't care about any concerns. He can play, he's a talent. And then you look and see what happened there. So again, he's someone who could still be on the team this year, but they took a dart throw on someone who wasn't necessarily a culture guy, and that backfired at this point last year. So I'm okay with it. Plus defense, it works. I think, Taylor, your point on the fact that this is where you just kind of get your people, and there's not necessarily there's really no harm, no foul in a day 3 pick, in my opinion, unless it's a super crazy reach, and this does not feel like it at all.
No, one, Deion Walker is a Bill, so good for us. But also, and this is a culture draft. Last year was also a culture draft because they were trying to reestablish the culture. And what happened? The guy they pivoted on was one of the most distracting players on the team. And obviously, I'm not throwing that all on Javon Baker. That situation was a disaster, but we saw
the whole
how that
situation. The entire team was a disaster. But yeah, to your point.
Exactly. And this is a year where Vrabel has made it very clear that they are resetting the culture and that this is a culture draft. They want guys like the free agent class who are going to set the standard. So if there's sophomores who are like, how are we supposed to move? The young guys aren't going to be looking to the sophomores. They're going to either be looking to the veterans that were signed in free agency, or they're going to set the standard themselves because they were drafted as people who don't need to be led because they were leaders on their own teams. Travion Henderson was a captain. Will Campbell obviously was a legend at LSU. Everything we're hearing about these guys is that they're great people with attention to detail, great work ethic. And, all this happened, if you want to be a pessimist, you can say, oh, well, you said the same thing about Jalen Polk. One thing I'll say is a lot of these guys have consistency, and they've been doing it for a long time. The only guy who bucks that trend is Jared Wilson, and Jared Wilson was on Georgia's practice squad. Like he said, he was going up against all the guys that got drafted, he was learning from on a daily basis from one of the brightest defensive minds on any level of football. So I think that what we're seeing now is it continues the trend of there's just more credibility with what we're seeing with the coaching staff, with the free agents. And now we're seeing it with the players drafted where like these guys have been doing it for 3+ years. We don't need to guess. We know exactly what they're going to look like. Not exactly, but they're also the pedigree where, Craig Woodson playing in Cal isn't the best necessarily, but like he's going up against Caleb Williams last year. You're going up against some very good quarterbacks as well. So again, I think the difference between this draft and maybe some in the past is there's credibility on top of the character, but also we're hearing unanimously, like all the national people are like, oh my God, I love these players. That hasn't been the case in other years. It's been like, you can find guys who like it, but then you can also find people who question it. I have yet to see a national reporter who really questions any of the moves the Patriots have made. Nate Tice said they're easily one of the winners of the draft, and I trust his opinion much more than my own.
I'll say on JK, I lost my train of thought. It's late. It's early.
Sorry, I kind of went in there.
It's getting late. It's getting late early for Kadlick.
The brain fog just pulled in. I had a point, and then I started talking, and I was like, I have no idea what.
I usually save my gummies for the end of the night.
It was on the culture draft last year versus this year, where everyone came at them for the culture draft last year because it didn't work out, but they still ended up with Drake May. Jalen Polk, in theory, was a culture pick that there's still a shelf life here. Like, he still may work out. Then once you got into day 2, the culture draft kind of went out the window in Javon Baker, Jaheim Bell, and Joe Milton. Like, it wasn't necessarily like
not Joe Milton. He didn't do anything wrong.
They were just okay, fine, but they were more so not looked at as foundational pieces. Because
Jordan Richards, by the way, to answer that question, Jordan Richards has traumatized this fan base.
Yeah, that's fair. And
if it's a good guy at safety, he's got to be Jordan Richards.
Duke Dawson was another traumatizing. Those are
second-round picks.
Jordan Richards, Jordan Richardson. That was a brutal one.
Tavon Williams,
Tavon Wilson, Juwan Williams, Razai Dowling. I don't want to do this.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right, Taylor. This is not a second-round pick. This is a fourth-round
Bama
pick.
kid. Was it Duke? No, who was the one who fumbled his first kickoff return and then never played again?
Cyrus Jones.
Cyrus Jones. Oh my God.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh my God, Cy Jones.
We don't talk about this like the receivers,
because all their undrafted guys, late rounders pop off.
The round
2-3 deep back graveyard is significant. It is brutal. They
don't talk about it because
the Razai Dowling one killed me because there were quarterbacks available and the Patriots were holding pick 1 in the second round. And you think everyone's coming rushing for that. And then they just stood pat and took this just nobody. Oh my God. So yeah, there's been some bad ones. And again, this is the first thing that feels reachy, but also day 3 is where you can do that. And that's fine.
Like, even Javon Baker, like, we can poo-poo it all we want, but he knew Drake May. He was talented. And he was the most talented guy on the board. It's like that. Those are the dart throws you take. Unfortunately, they didn't have the infrastructure to support a guy who, needed to mature.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I will ask you guys because it is interesting now. If you look at it with the receiver situation here, anything you draft later at the receiver position, realistically, should be more special teams, type of player. However, you have a couple guys on the roster here that you did grab 6th and 7th round with Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte, who were contributors last year. But now you look at the overall depth chart of the receivers entering camp, and it's going to be interesting. You're assuming you're keeping 6. 2 guys are going to go here between Boutte, Bourne, automatic.
Boutte's already being shopped.
Yeah, automatic going to stick. You just drafted Williams. He's obviously staying. DeMario's staying, and you signed Diggs and Hollins. That's automatic. Now
Polk, I've heard good things about also. Polk, I've heard good things about.
You're not going to get rid of a second-round pick in year 2, so that's 5 slots. You got everybody else battling for that last spot, presumably, whether they get traded or just outright cut. And that would include Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker, and Kendrick Bourne. Who do you see as the odd man out if you're making those decisions today? or like who's got an inside track there? I think it's got to be Bourne, because you're not going to keep a veteran as your sixth receiver, and you want to develop some other guys. But also, he's not bad. And
Bourne is Schrodinger's cat. He exists.
You want him in year 2 coming off the ACL rather than year 1, correct? I mean, so that's a tough one. I don't know. It might be Baker and Booty.
Bourne is as on the fence as it gets for me. Like his job security completely depends on the people around him. I think he's going to do everything he can to earn a roster spot. I think he's going to look good. But if any of those young guys give them a reason to cut him, I think they will either cut him or they will trade him. I think Kayshon Boutte gets traded if possible, or he gets cut. I think Javon Baker traded or cut. I think Matt Collins and Stephon Diggs make this team for at least a year. And then Demario Douglas, honestly, depends on if they decide to get a slot receiver, because his whole issue has been like the option routes, the zone stuff, the kind of mental side of the game. And I don't think that Josh is going to overflood these guys with information like he's done in other years where he just had a ton of veterans and couldn't really slow down the ship so the young guys could catch up. But I do think that's an element of his game where we haven't really seen significant growth yet, although he did improve as a route runner, and that was an issue as a rookie. Got to give him credit for that. So I don't think that Pop is as much of a lock. I think he's a virtual lock, but I think he is why we call it virtual. We don't call it a lock because it's as close as you can get. But like if something happens, maybe something changes.
Yeah, Booty just feels like the odd man out here, and honestly, probably Javon Baker as well. I don't see Baker making the team, and I think he's a cut candidate where Booty feels like someone who, Taylor, we did this yesterday, where if like a Stephon Diggs ends up on PUP to start the season, Booty can slide on the roster early, and then they can kind of figure it out from there. But with potential trade return value out there for Booty, I feel like that's probably the easiest way to go. Like, I don't think you're getting anything for Javon Baker on the trade market. I just don't. Where Kayshon Boutte actually showed something last season, and maybe you flip him for a 6th-round pick, what you drafted for him, a couple years ago. So I would like to see Boutte on the roster. I am a fan of Boutte.
Getting you primed for 69.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, it's one of those things where they're filling out the roster, especially with Kyle Williams. Like, there's guys that there may be a surprise-ish, and I wonder who it ends up being. But it feels like a long shot that Kayshon Boutte is on the team next year.
Wow, that's it. I think he might have been better than we gave him credit for. He was the best of a lot of bad. I don't know. It's a tough call there. It's a tough call.
I mean, Booty. He was a good player last year. He showed why he was worth the 6th-round flyer from a guy who was a potential 1st-round pick when he was at LSU.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you bring in Kyle Williams, you sign Stephon Diggs. Like, Booty was great for what he did last season, but you need more. You were 4-12. Like, you need more.
And our friend of the show, Andre Weingarten, he is very good at giving me perspective because he's like worked in front offices. So he knows how to gauge players better than we do as people who have watched borderline completely what last year was an incompetent franchise and what the year before was a crumbling franchise that was dwindling credibility. And he said, if Kayshon Boutte was on another team, where would he rank in their receiving depth chart? No stable team would have Kayshon Boutte as anything more than a wide receiver 3, and probably he'd be a wide receiver 4. So everyone who makes it seem like, oh, he's not going anywhere, he was so good last year, I'm sorry, you have like the football version of Stockholm syndrome. What you've seen from the Patriots, like that should not be the standard. You deserve, you deserve better. You deserve, and this is not a shot at Kayshon Boutte. It's just like, you can do better. We should not be acting like there's no way he's not going to be on this roster. Like, I hope he takes a step and I hope he reaches his full potential. But like, come on, we have to also be realistic and call it what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, Taylor, I know, and I'm
don't flip that.
I'm not going to flip this on you, but I am going to flip it on you a little. You do tend to, on occasion, in the stature of some players who might be 4s and say like he's a 3 or
and this is why I talk to Andre, because it helps kind of center me, because I lose.
He listens to Greg.
I was talking to Fran Duffy, who I love. He covers the Eagles. He does a great job. And I told him, I was like, I swear, I think watching this team has made me worse at my job, because I don't watch good football. And It's like
Right.
if you are just in a wood cabin by yourself for 2 years, you're gonna forget how to talk. I don't.
No,
want
you're
the
100%
muscles
right.
anymore. I don't know. Like I'm
Can I-
learning. I'm trying to get.
Can I tell
healthy
you a
again.
dirty secret? I have one friend and former colleague who the only thing he ever texts me are overly sunny Tayler Kyles tweets. And
I'm
he's like,
learning. I'm growing. I'm doing my best. Like
and he's like, come on. And I was like, and then I defended. I'm like, you gotta follow the whole convo. What he's saying is
I give my asterisks. Like I very rarely just go off with no, like, oh my God, he's gonna be an all pro with like 0 caveats. But you know, I'm trying to cut down on my caveats. It's extra.
So-
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I
Robinson-
just go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
It's true.
Ty Robinson and CJ West are off the board now. Ty Robinson went to the Eagles, loading up that front again, and CJ West goes to the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll have to reset our boards before the next show a little bit here, but that defensive line help that we wanted, a couple guys are off.
If you want to be successful, a personnel evaluator, or you want your team, your personnel department to be great, what you need to do is get somebody to join the Eagles staff as a double agent and just sit in there and basically just text you what they want to do. And then you do what they do because it is really unbelievable there. Let me ask you this, because someone put it in the chat. You look at those guys and it does make sense. Between those two, Baker and Boutte would be the ones who would go, you would think. But as you just went out and signed Mac Hollins, who's another culture guy and another guy who can do some things, but if you're sitting at home, do you want Mac Hollins, or you want to roll the dice that one of these younger guys turns into something? What do you want to see?
I think Mac
Was Mac
Williams,
Hollins, I don't want to say
truly is
unnecessary, but the Mac Hollins to me felt like we got nobody. I got to get somebody. Then you go and get Diggs. Then you go and draft Kyle Williams. Mac Hollins to me feels gratuitous at this point.
I think the fact that Stephon Diggs isn't going to be available in the summer is going to work to Mac Hollins' advantage. He's going to develop a rapport with Drake May. He's going to be the guy with the top offense, showing everybody how everything is going to be done, setting the standard, knowing the Josh McDaniels offense. So I think he and Drake are going to develop some relationship. If they don't, though, if it's not like, if it's kind of like last year where it's like we started to see flashes with Drake and the young guys, and then it started to peter off late. If that's the kind of thing that happens, then yeah, I could see Mac Hollins getting cut. But I think that he's enough of a professional that he'll understand the opportunity he has. Drake is going to know that he's got a guy who he can at least rely on while also mixing in the young guys. So I could see Mac Hollins on this roster, but the fact that Stephon's not going to be there to be that kind of standard bearer on the field is going to kind of give him a sneaky in for at least a season, or at least maybe until Stephon Diggs is activated off PUP, which I feel like.
And again, I understand there's a little bit more red zone. There's a little bit more size there. I understand there's a little history with Josh McDaniels. There's a lot of reasons why it makes sense if you're trying to fill out a room. Less so if you have, recent draft picks that you still want to develop. And again, Baker, who couldn't possibly, like Polk from a performance standpoint, couldn't have possibly had a worse year. Every metric, doesn't matter where you want to go, ESPN Next Gen Stats, PFF grades, he's last in almost everything. So again, I don't care what numbers you use. He was bad. And yes, Taylor, your caveat is noted. I'll get back to you in a second.
Okay,
I do not cede my time to the senator. No. What I'm saying is,
a piece of paper that says
Baker was a knucklehead in every way imaginable, but he's got the physical traits. It's still early to give up on a guy in year 2, and that's what I hate. Is like you have to be a disaster. It's a 4th round pick. It's not like you drafted somebody like you did with Polk, high 2nd round. You got to give him another go round, so you can cut a 4th rounder for sure. But it's still kind of early. But anyway, you wanted to say about Polk there.
Yeah, so Alex Katzen mentioned yesterday that a big part of Jalen Polk's game is confidence. We know one, that Elliott Wolf admitted they put too much on his plate. So mentally, he was probably fried. And we know that he lost his confidence. I don't know anybody who performs at even a functional level when they have no confidence in their ability to function at what they do. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Like, if it's going to be historically bad, it's because you are just like kind of mentally shot. And I think that Jalen Pope showed in previous seasons that the things he was bad at last year are the things that as a football player, he's good at. And you can explain why he just stopped being good at them. It's because he was in his head. So I get it. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a starter or anything. I think he's going to have to earn a job like everybody else. I think he's going to start the year on the second team. But I also think it's unfair to act like he's a bad football player because he was in one of the worst situations in the entire NFL last season.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's funny how almost every situation over the last 3 years is the worst situation in the entire NFL in three different, you just got a different flavor, from the Patricia Judge situation to the last days of Belichick, where Gerard's walking around like he knows he's got the job and everybody hates everybody. And then last year, just being a roster that was bereft of any legitimate NFL talent almost across the board. And Jacoby Brissett starting the first X amount of games and, well below replacement level line. Yeah, you can't possibly have worse. I'll throw this up here. I don't know if you guys got to this super chat, but for you, Taylor, all thoughts on Joshua Simon. Thank you, Octalax. Great, cool. Octalax. Is that like a medicine?
That's sick. Is that a shiny? Well, it's a shiny Snorlax with the head of a snake. What is that? It's a Pokemon hybrid.
It's a Pokemon thing. Okay. Any thoughts on Joshua Simon later in the draft? It sounds like a laxative.
It's a Pokemon, a mollusk. I think it's a mollusk.
Okay. Any thoughts on Joshua Simon later in the draft? Also, Taylor,
I'm so sorry. I have no idea who that is.
I know how you feel. I do the same sunny stuff with Bruins prospects. I know Fabian Lysel's gonna be a guy soon.
I'm gonna look up Joshua Simon right now. Let me see if I like his profile.
Oh boy,
6'4", 239.
What happened, Mike?
Nothing. I'm just losing steam. Steam. It's all right. No, we're good. Nothing happened. We're waiting on 3 picks in round 5?
He's old. He's 25.
Trevor Etienne went to the Panthers.
He did. Simon was drafted. Don't bother Googling him.
Oh, okay. Did he just get drafted?
Somebody said to Cardinals.
Oh, good for them. When did the Patriots pick? Oh, not for a while.
Yeah. Not for a while. So let's update what we're going to do. We're going to get some, we're going to do multiple things. We're going to take a break. We're going to get some coffee and Mike. We will be back for the start of the 5th round where the Patriots are going to have 3 picks there. We'll see what happens. As always, as we always do. And again, guys, I got to say, friggin' phenomenal turnout. There's 1,200 plus on YouTube, thousands more. We have over 7,000 people watching right now. This draft coverage on day 3, which is just insane. So again, thank you guys. We do appreciate it. We'll pop back on 5th round. The Patriots have some moves, but as we always do, we are gonna assemble right away if there's a trade. With so little time on the clock here, the chances of us getting up before the pick is made is small. But if there is a pick and it's made, we'll try to jump on there and talk about it. But I will give this caveat, because it is day 3. If they go pick some special teamer or a kicker, we're probably just going to wait and talk about it at the start of round 5. So it has to be a needle mover. But we are going to come back most likely at the start of round 5 and see what happens here and go through some of these picks as they have it. Then we'll do something at the very end of the day, kind of wrapping day 3 and looking at everything that the Patriots accomplished here. So that's kind of our thoughts. We are still now deep into how many picks are we into this year?
We are at pick 115 was just taken.
115, and the Patriots are coming up in.
They'll be at 144.
144. So we're looking at what? Yeah, let's say 30, 45 minutes. We'll probably be back here to come chat with you guys. We got to, freshen up a little bit, dunk our heads in a bucket of ice.
We're going to do the ice bucket challenge. That's why I got to go. I got to go do my ice bucket challenge.
All right, where are we? Round 4. Just want to see how much we've got here. Yeah, we're cruising along here. We're halfway through the 4th round. And the Patriots are coming up.
We'll be ready for a potential trade up too.
Yeah, we'll be ready for a trade up. Patriots have the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th pick in the 6th round. So that makes sense. Start of the 5th round seems about right. So, we'll take that break. We'll start it back up again. you can find that link on our YouTube channel. I believe we've already created it, and we'll put it out on Twitter as well. And you guys can jump back in here, and then we'll just hang out and we'll keep talking. We'll get your thoughts. We'll take your questions. So we do appreciate all of it here. Before we go, one thing I did want to say, do we have it? The show is brought to you in part by Game Time. Make sure you download that app. You want to get in. Hey man, Patriots tickets, you might actually have to pay for them this year. This could be a fun and interesting team to watch. You want to get in on the action. You're going to need Game Time. Also, you want to go check out the Celtics. That's a different conversation. One of the reasons I had a tough time getting on the show this morning is my eyes were bleeding from watching that game last night. Holy crap. Oh my God. But download that Game Time app if you want to check out the season, the playoffs, or any of it's concert season, whatever you want to get in on. Obviously, you want to be out ahead of NFL games this fall to check out the Patriots or wherever it is, wherever you live, wherever you want to go check out your home team's play. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Once again, download the app, create an account, code CLNS, $20 first purchase, terms to apply. Terrific app, great features, best deals around, 110% price match guarantee if you find a better deal anywhere else, which you won't. Great toggle feature where you can see the all-in pricing, so there's no hidden fees at checkout, and the panoramic views from your seats are awesome. You can really see what it looks like. So this is the place you should go if you're looking for tickets. Game Time is where it's at. Download it, code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase, terms to apply. As we said, we will be back for the start of the 5th round. Thank you guys again for watching. We look forward to hanging out a little bit more later into the afternoon and see what the Patriots come up with here in round 5. For Tayler and Mike and all of the guests who were on the stream earlier, thank you guys. Thank you to the viewers. We'll see you guys in a little bit.